Hi, it's Martyn Ware, Electronically Yours. Today
Thank you.
See it myself.
Hello, it's the special patrons only edition of Electronically Ours, where you get to ask me questions and I respond to them as honestly as I can, whilst not avoiding the issue. To ask me the questions today, I've got my erstwhile partner in crime. I've got a cold, by the way, so it's not cocaine usage. You're all right. My erstwhile partner in crime, Charles Stook.
Hello.
Who's going to be asking me the questions, and we will crack on right now.
Cool. Hi, hey Martin. So we've got the first question is from Chris Bartley. What is your favourite ever anecdote about the weird and wonderful world of pop music?
That's such a broad question, isn't it? Firstly, Chris, thank you for suggesting this as an idea for the podcast, for the Electronically Ours podcast. God, that's such a challenge. Weird and wonderful. We were once on stage at a song festival in Bari in Italy with Hem 17. And when we turned up, it was a national television event. It's a big, big song festival. And we were on the same bill with the guy who wrote Volare, believe it or not. So we had to go on stage and sing that with him, which is really exciting and interesting. But also, they said to us when we arrived that they wanted us to, all the band to dress as kangaroos, to be the kangaroo team. And we said, no, absolutely, under no circumstances are we going to dress as kangaroos. That was pretty strange. Not particularly controversial, but strange nevertheless.
Right, yeah, good answer. Next we got Chris Storey. He says, "Hi Martin, what are your 10 most favourite albums of all time?" Cheers, Chris Storey.
Oh God, I should have prepared for this, shouldn't I?
It's like the smash hits.
Yeah, good Lord. I mean, do you know, I'm not going to give you that definitive answer, only because I can't. It would change every day. Suffice to say, there's a lot of Bowie on there, a lot of Tony Visconti produced albums. My favourite Bowie albums are Low and Heroes, probably Diamond Dogs. Yeah, that kind of stuff. But I was a massive fan of Roxy music in the early days. And a big fan of early prog rock as well. A lot of King Crimson, Van der Graaf Generator. Yeah, that's as far as I can say. There's so many great soul albums that I love as well. And contemporary artists as well. So I'd have to prep for that, and I'm sorry I haven't.
All right then, and we've got another from Chris Storey. What things do you fear the most?
Fear? When you get to 65, you start worrying about your health more. And I'm worried. I'm so driven to work and be creative that I fear not being able to do that, or going deaf or something like that. It's all health related, really. I'm not worried about. I don't fear not being successful anymore, or not. I just fear not being able to be creative and get the satisfaction I do out of that.
Fair enough. We've got a question from Matt Bridger. Firstly, thanks for the fantastic podcast. My questions. I'm a big Mark Arman fan. You produced some tracks for his Fantastic Star album, including one of my all-time favourites, Brilliant Creatures, as well as Caged. How did you come to get involved in the project, and what are your memories of it? Also, could you get Mark on the podcast?
I've asked Mark, and he politely declined. We're very good friends. He's not. Didn't do it out of. He knows. We've done loads of stuff together, as you know. But so that's that dealt with. How did I get involved? He was managed by Steve-O at the time, who's a legendary character in the music business. And he approached me and said, didn't know you produced people. I said, I've just produced Tina Turner. I think that's pretty high profile. So I was very flattered to work with Mark because I think he's a really talented guy. And I was very proud of those tracks, actually, for that album. I think he got himself in a bit of a tangle during the making of the album because he had lots of different producers on it, and I think it turned out to be a bit disjointed because of that. He should have just let me do the whole album. But anyway, there you go.
Right, and then we've got 4 other from Matt, so I'm just going to ask you them all at once. And,
all right.
First, if you could have written one 80s electronic hit other than your own, which would it be?
Slave to the Rhythm.
Then what would you ever consider doing a full album with Claudia Brooken? It would be a fantastic collaboration. I was at Scala for her gig that you and Glenn appeared at.
Claudia's a really good mate. I've tried to get Claudia on the podcast, but she keeps kicking the can down the road for some reason. I'd love to work with Claudia. I think she's really talented. I like her songwriting very much as well.
Cool. If you could take one Human League track from the period after you left and add it to a playlist of early era Heaven HL, I guess he means... Yeah. If you could take one Human League track from the period after you left and add it to a playlist of early era HL, which track would you choose and why?
That's a very good question. I can't really answer that because I don't think very, very much of Dare onwards really sounds anything like the early era of the first 2 Human League albums. I can tell you my favourite track from Dare is Mirror Man. I think it's a really good... there's some fantastic tunes on that. So
nice. And then finally, our Wednesday going up this season. Wow.
War.
War. Sorry.
We're all Wednesday, aren't we?
Right.
Right.
Oh, I'm not.
I know you're not, but can't be helped. Our Wednesday going up this season, I feel a little more optimistic that we might stand a chance. It's really, I would say 50-50. It might be via the playoffs, that's the only thing, which is always a lottery.
Right, okay. We've got 4 more questions from Chris Storey here. Shall I just quick fire them? What's the best track you think you've released, including Heaven 17, etc., including people you have produced?
Good Lord, that is such an incredibly broad question. I'm very proud of Let's Stay Together by Tina Turner. I'm very proud of, obviously, Temptation, but my favourite track, and Wishing Well, which is number 1 in America, but very happy to say Let Me Go by Heaven 17.
It's a tune. If you didn't become a musician, what do you think you would be doing right now?
Well, I started off boning bacon at the Co-op, so and I was a computer operator after that. So I think I would have ended up in the creative industry somewhere. I've always had I've naturally been drawn towards things like photography, graphic design, architecture. I think maybe I would have possibly been a mature student and studied graphic design or architecture.
What is the worst backstabbing thing that someone has done to you in your musical history? Who is it and how did it happen?
I think it's well documented, but I'd have to say Phil Oakey. Yeah.
Okay. What is the weirdest question you've ever been asked in an interview?
I don't generally get asked weird questions. I think it's because I'm quite sensible. Probably somebody once asked me if there was anything happening sexually between me and Glenn. I thought that was quite good. I had to say yes. No, it's not true. No.
Okay. We've got one from Tracy Roberts here. Manchester Albert Hall was amazing, off the scale, such an amazing venue. Could you bring the Travelogue reproduction gig to there or even to Manchester Apollo? We feel we've missed a good one there. You know we love you on the Red Rose side of the Pennines.
Oh, bless. Thank you, Tracy. That's lovely. We will perform the reproduction and travelogue show for anybody who wants us to. It's quite an expensive show to put on, logistically and, well, cost-wise. And so there would have to be a promoter who would be willing to fund that. So anybody out there, fancy it? We're definitely up for doing some more of that.
It was a very good show. I did
see
it myself. We got 2 more from Chris Storey. Have you ever been so nervous it stopped you from doing something you wanted to achieve?
Yeah, reaching orgasm, I think it was the... musically, no, I don't really suffer from nerves in that. I don't suffer from stage fright or studio fright or whatever. I think once you're confident in what you're doing, there are always things that can go wrong, of course, and things have gone wrong in the past. But pointless worrying about it, really. You just want to give a performance for people.
Right, and then we've got another from Chris. Tell us the history of the cars you have owned, from your first car to now. Have you ever been fined for a motoring offence or speeding? You don't drive, do you?
I don't drive.
Doesn't
Next.
drive. DJ H. Worms asked, did you ever want to turn back time, and if so, why? Cheers, H.
Turn back time. No, I believe the arrow of time is a positive influence on my life.
Nice. Mark, what inspired Geisha Boys and Temple Girls? And by the way, the Glasgow show was tremendous last night.
I
Thumbs
love
up.
all these compliments. It's
Yeah,
the
they're
best.
nice, aren't they?
Geisha Boys Temple Girls was inspired by our clubbing activities in Sheffield at that time. And that song's really all about the kind of nervousness of early sexual encounters and, all that stuff that goes through your mind when you're in your late teens, I suppose.
Nice. Steve asks, just the one question. On your book, how do you feel you have done it justice, your life that is, as you have affected so many people's lives, mostly positively, I might add?
I'd like to know how I've affected them negatively, if there are any of them. But yes. Oh, yes. Aye. If I've ever affected your life negatively, please write in. How do I think I've done it justice? I'm still kind of refining it at the moment, actually. I'm trying to make it a bit more about the emotions I felt at the time, a bit less about the amount of stuff I've done, because I'm kind of historically been obsessed with just getting on with things rather than analysing them. So now I've got to go back with my, retrospective eye and try and understand what I was feeling at the time, what was driving me. So that's what I'm up to at the moment. But it will be coming out in autumn 22.
Nice. We've got some more from Chris Storey here. What does your home hi-fi setup consist of? Go into detail of each component. Of course, you have Bowers and Wilkins speakers.
Go into detail of each electrical contact. Sorry. Just going to have a little drink of water. My hi-fi, I'm actually renting in central London at the moment, so I don't have my normal hi-fi. I was sponsored for over a decade by Bowers and Wilkins, so I've been using Bowers and Wilkins and Rotel components for quite a while. And currently, because I'm in a smaller apartment, I'm using a Bowers and Wilkins Zeppelin, which sound fantastic.
Chris Storey asks, what was it like working for B&W? Please go into detail.
Go into detail. Doesn't want much, does he? Working for B&W, it was a joy. I didn't work for B&W, by the way. they sponsored me and we did some collaborative projects together. So there's not really that much detail to go into. They commissioned a few things in terms of installations, and I always got on very well with Danny Hakin, who was the head of international marketing at the time. He now works for Kef, who I'm also sponsored by. And there's not much more detail to go into it. They used to just give us plenty of equipment to manifest our illustrious soundscapes.
DJ H. Worms. Hey Martyn, similar to the Smash Hits types of questions about your 10 favourite albums, when limiting one of your regular podcast questions to just music, what was your epiphanal? I was going to ask you this at the end of this, actually.
Right.
But I just said it until the age of... I don't want to butter anyone up, but I had such a moment. Until the age of 13, I only listened to the music that my older cousins listened to. White Snake, Deep Purple, Pink Floyd. Then I started listening to irrelevant pop until I stumbled upon Penthouse and Pavement. This was finally my own music that I didn't have to share with my older cousins. My musical socialisation took its course. Do you want to do a Smash Hits now?
Of what? Yeah, why not?
Yeah, your own Smash
Let's do
Hits.
it.
Okay, so what's your favourite film?
Clockwork Orange.
What's your favourite TV show?
Oh, God. I'm Alan Partridge.
What's your favourite book?
My favourite book is The Desire and Pursuit of the Whole, W-H-O-L-E, by Baron Corvo.
Who's your other favourite musical artist or composer?
I would say Beethoven.
Who is your favourite visual artist?
Visual artist.
Or conceptual?
Yeah, or conceptual. I really like, and I've always liked Salvador Dali.
Nice. What is your favourite bit of your own work, or that you're most proud of?
I suppose. I mean, I would normally say "Let Me Go," and the productions that I've done, Terence Trent D'Arby and Tina, and lots of others. But in terms of Heaven 17 and BEF, I would say that my favourite Heaven 17 album is How Men Are, and I think as an integrated piece of work, I think that's the best thing we ever did. Yeah,
I like that one as well. And your epiphanal moment?
Standing in a garden outside the back of Chris Watson's from Cabaret Voltaire house. His parents were away. He'd got a 1K rig in the back garden for a party. I'm sure the neighbours didn't like it. It was a terraced house as well. And I was stood there a bit worse for wear, excuse the pun, and listening for the first time to Trans-Europe Express on a PA. That for me was my light bulb moment when I thought, I get it. Because before that, electronic music had been, to me, quite cerebral, but this felt quite visceral, and interestingly enough, Kraftwerk are well documented as being one of the major inspirations behind hip hop worldwide, because of that visceral nature. People weren't following it because it was all clever, and it's because it was like a film soundtrack that really impacted you.
Nice. And then finally, what's your favourite synth?
Oh yeah, the Roland System 100.
Yeah, thought you'd say that. Gary Williams. Hi Martyn. Any anecdotes about working with Billy Mackenzie, either on the BAF albums or perhaps?
Yeah, Billy. I've said many times what a brilliant person he was, and what an extraordinary person he was. Not just from his singing talent, but his personality was incredible. He was incredibly excitable, and he would bounce into the studio like a puppy. He'd go, "Hey, I'm really excited today, Martyn. We're going to make some great music and all that stuff." And normally turn it with a whippet, or and it said, "Hey, I've got some friends coming down today," and it'd be like a completely he'd give me no warning, and suddenly there'd be like a 10-piece band turn up of people I've never even heard of or met before. So we'd set it up and we'd work on stuff. And but when I was doing the BEF stuff with him, I remember, because I was such a fan of those early singles, I met him, and we'd already done the backing track for Secret Life of Arabia. And he said, came in, he was quite shy because we'd not met before, and he said, I'm a big fan of Bowie, Martyn. I love it, and I'm not very confident that I can really beat how David sung this. And I said, well, don't worry about it, Bill. You just have a go, put your imprint on it, So the backing track starts, and it's like bam bam bada, the secret life of Arabia, and it's like straight out the traps up to 0 to 100 in 4 seconds, and what a performance that is, by the way. It didn't really have a how can I put it? It didn't have a filter to a certain extent on his talent. It was just raw. Everything he did was just quite straight. He believed so much in his talent that it just came out. And so anything I threw at him, and he loved It's Over. That interpretation of It's Over by Roy Orbison is beautiful. And later on, when I challenged him to do a version of Denise Williams' Free, because I thought, he's got such a soulful voice. People didn't really appreciate this, but he really did. I thought he'd be perfect for him to do that. And the version he did, if you've never heard it, it's on the second BEF album. It's on Spotify. You need to go and listen to it because it's just beautiful. And so, the other funny story about Billy is he'd brought this demo in, and I'd heard it before he arrived in the studio, and I'd got an idea about how to improve it from an arrangement point of view. So I explained he came into the studio, I explained all my ideas. It took about 10 minutes to explain, and he was keeping very quiet. And then at the end he said, "Hi, Martyn, okay, well, we'll just do it like I want to do it." And in a very gentle and kind way. He had a problem with working with producers because he genuinely thought he understood what his music was about and how it could best be put onto record. And that's just not the case. Some of his records sound a bit thin and a bit kind of overbright, and that's just a lack of experience from a point of view of mixing. They're still great records, by the way, because it's about the content. And I knew I could improve the sound of them for him. But he was very much his own man.
Right. We've got a question from Martin Green. In the 80s, when you were rubbing shoulders with other performers, who did you really not see eye to eye with?
That's a good question. I like that. Never really, I mean, we get on with most people and have done historically. We're kind of known for it, really. There are a few people who are a bit standoffish, shall we say, at the time. People like Duran, when we were on Top of the Pops with them, thought they were the shit. And they were the shit, you know, for a certain period of time. I got on very well with John Taylor. I was on Pop Quiz with him on the telly. He was a really nice guy, but the rest of them were a bit kind of like, a bit kind of arrogant, I think. Apart from that, there are very few people that we've actively not got on with. It just wouldn't work in the small world of the music business. You've got to be able to get on with people.
This is a good one. Nick Gillard asks, if you were in charge, what would your first 3 societal changes be?
Oh, I know this one. Well, societal. Let's talk about the UK, because we're in a wild world of shit at the moment. Firstly, I would actively ban the Tory party. I would force them to disband. Secondly, I would get rid of the Houses of Parliament. I'd move their location to a big fucking warehouse in the middle of nowhere, and put them in like 3-star hotel, so that there's nothing attractive about being an MP, apart from if you want to do it for public service purposes. I would ban lobbying completely. I would make it illegal, in fact. I don't know how many of you have ever been in the halls of Westminster, but it's like a big boys' club, basically. A load of pissed MPs wandering about, and lobby journalists. Journalists, that's a good term. Lobby journalists just trying to glean whatever bits of shit they can, so they can recycle it for selling newspaper purposes. It's a dysfunctional system. So getting rid of that, and also I'd bring in proportional representation, and I would bring in extremely low. I would basically rail back on any indirect taxation, and massively increase ultra wealth tax. So anybody earning over whatever, 500,000 a year would have to pay 60-70%, as it was in the 70s.
Right on. We have got Alan Ferris. What are the albums produced by Tony Visconti that make up a large percentage of your top 20 albums of all time?
Okay. The early T-Rex albums. That's about 4 of them. All of the albums that Visconti has produced for Bowie, and 2 unexpected ones are probably unexpected. There's a band called Carmen that he produced in the 70s that we thought were brilliant. At that time, if Tony Visconti produced an album, we used to go and buy it without listening to it. So he was such a genius. Fandango's in Space. It was like a few... Oh, hello. Fandango's in Space, which is like a futuristic flamenco album, believe it or not. There was a second album as well. I can't remember the name of it. That pretty much covers 12 of my favourite 20 albums, probably.
Interesting. Owen Egan asks, hi Martyn, outside of music, what hobby or interest gives you the most enjoyment?
Football. Next.
Brian Wharton asks, hi Martyn, in these days when a lot of acts get dropped by their record labels, are there any plans for H17 to record new material to be released independently, either through your fan club or sold at gigs?
We've tried that, and it worked to a certain extent. We released some vinyl-only singles a few years ago. It's a lot of faff for just to service a fairly small, loyal fan base. And to do, one of the things we still do, pride ourselves on with Heaven 17 is the quality of what we do and the care and attention we pay to arrangements and sonic quality, etc. And to do that takes time and attention and money. And it basically, if there's not enough justification for it from the other end, it's very hard to justify spending that time on doing that. I feel compelled to be creative, but I have many other creative outlets, including my 3D soundscape company, Illustrious, where I create a lot of stuff for that. But that's more for public installations and museums, etc. And of course, if there are any record companies out there who want to finance us recording a new album, we are ready, willing and able. We've even got our own studio, so it doesn't have to cost a huge amount of money. But I'm afraid there are very few record companies out there who are willing to take that risk anymore.
Another one from Brian is, what contemporary music artists do you listen to?
Okay. I listen to a lot of experimental electronic stuff. I like more experimental hip-hop artists. I like Frank Ocean. I quite like Lil Nas X, because he's more of a conceptualist kind of hip-hop dude. Well, pop really, I suppose. There are quite a few kind of trip-hoppy, ambient type acts that I really like that are out currently. And, I've got extremely eclectic tastes. It's very hard for me to nail down specifics. I don't listen to the radio. I don't listen to Radio 1 or Radio 2 or anything like that. So I'm not playing that bandwagon game. I work on recommendations from people.
Nice. You said that you were influenced by prog rock. Any plans to get any of these artists on the podcast?
Yeah, I want to get... a friend of mine is Alan Parsons. I always liked his stuff. And I'm going to approach him to do it. I really want to get Peter Hamill on as well, who's Van de Graaff Generator. Was a massive influence on us when we were younger. We did Stephen Wilson, who's like a neo-prog rock kind of dude. I love his last album, Reality Bites.
What about the King Crimson guitarist?
Oh yeah, Bob Fripp. I'd love to get Bob Fripp on here. I can get to him via Toyo, who I bump into occasionally on the circuit.
You should do it.
Bob Fripp is my all-time favourite guitarist.
He's pretty good.
I mean, literally, he invented for me, together with Eno, the idea of expanding ambient music from, what I would have regarded it to be more electronic, but he used massive guitar treatment techniques to create soundscapes just from guitar. And, guy's a genius. Understated genius as well.
Eski Simonson asks, love your podcast, thanks. Still, I would love to hear more about Ian Marsh and his role in Human League and Heaven 17 and his departure since you had almost everyone else on your show, thanks. You saying that you don't know where he is only adds to the mystery. Cheers.
It's a difficult one because Ian, we hear on the grapevine more or less where in the world he is. I think he may be back in Sheffield now, looking after his remaining parent. Nothing's changed since the day he stopped communicating with us. Basically, we did a TV show. I think it was GMTV. Can't remember what year. 2005 was it, something like that? And we had a few days off and then sent out an email. Me and Ian were very good mates. We used to watch football together. He's a Wednesday fan. We were in constant contact with him. Sent an email to him to say, what are you up to? Didn't get a response. rang him, didn't get a response. Glenn did the same, who was very close, and Lindsay, his wife, was very close, didn't get a response. Didn't know what was going on. I had to find out he was safe, and he found out he was safe. But he clearly didn't want to communicate with us, so we have to respect that.
Right.
His influence, by the way, on Heaven 17 was immense, particularly, and the early Human League. He was not only a great modular synthesizer programmer, he was an enormous influence conceptually. He came up with the idea of penthouse and pavement, and his contribution to particularly the lyric writing was he was the secret sauce, basically. So there you go.
Oh. Okay, we've got one here from Diego Perez, which reads, I would like to know a bit more about how electronics were incorporated into pop music in the 70s, 80s. I suppose that Kraftwerk was a major influence, but I wondered if there were other factors. Thank you.
Yeah, there were other factors. The most interesting one of which is there used to be a huge market in the 60s and 70s for home organs, believe it or not. It was kind of built on the idea of replacing the family piano, and this new technology came along where you could entertain your friends and learn music and practice at home by buying a home organ. And then as time proceeded, that fell out of fashion, and obviously at that time Roland and Korg came along, and they thought, hold on a second, there is a big market here, but it just needs updating. So the early synthesizers that weren't aimed directly at musicians for the first time were actually the Roland System 100, for instance, which was like almost like a teaching tool, but for the general public. About, they were selling it like, you can make any sound you can imagine. And this is what kind of appealed to me about them. And same with Korg. They had a very public-facing, as opposed to musician-facing thing, which is why I also why I preferred Japanese manufacturers to American manufacturers, because they were very much looking at it as, the expertise of a keyboard player as translated into simulating traditional instruments and traditional arrangements. Now, I love people like Isaiah Tomita and Wendy Carlos, who were obviously pioneers, but their expertise was based on arrangement, learning traditional music arrangement, as opposed to the more abstract stuff from Pierre Schaeffer and tape manipulation people, even like people like BBC Radiophonic Workshop, Delia Derbyshire, Daphne Oram, a lot of people from
Toto's.
Oh yeah, Tonto's Expanding Headband, Cecil and Margalef, who went on to work with Stevie Wonder. A lot of electronic music was being made by people who were buying kits to make a synthesizer. Our very first one, which Ian Marsh did, was made. Our very first synthesizer was a Deutron kit, which he bought from Maplin's, and I've spoken to various other people who did the same thing. And most importantly, what I've realised during the process of making these podcasts is that I'm very passionate, as I mentioned in the podcast with John McClure, I'm very passionate about bringing to the world's attention the fact that electronic music was being made all over the world, not just in Europe and the USA, during that period. And I think a lot of that stuff needs to be excavated and exposed to the public. Africa, the Far East, Middle East, Southeast Asia, South America, Mesoamerica. They all had their own vibes using either home-built synthesizers or or existing commercial synthesizers.
It's interesting. Well, we've got a question from Tracy Roberts here. Your favourite footballing moment?
When we won the League Cup, Sheffield Wednesday, in 1991 at Wembley, I cried. I literally cried. I didn't think I was ever going to have any success for my team in my lifetime, and I knew that particular ghost had been laid to rest. And since then, we literally not achieved anything.
Right, we've got another from Tracy here. Favourite tipple of choice, wine or beer?
Oh, do you know, I appreciate wine. I'm quite knowledgeable about it. I actually looked into enology at one point because I lived in Italy for over 25 years, and I love Italian wine. However, at home I don't drink at all, and I only really drink beer when I go to football matches, and when the beer's half decent, which it's a lot better than it used to be, but it's largely not great in London, I have to say.
Fair cop. We've got a question from Ian Russell here. In the early days, did you ever say no when Phil came up with his lyrics? Crow and a Baby, for example. Is there anyone you'd like to hear cover Marianne?
That's two questions, isn't it?
Two questions.
Yeah. I can't answer the Marianne question, really. It is a great song, and it would be worthy of a cover. I don't know how they'd do it with a traditional rock outfit. What was the first bit again?
In the early days, did you ever say no when
Oh,
Phil
right,
came up with his lyrics?
Okay. No.
Why would he have? Why would you have?
I wouldn't, because I believed in Phil's extraordinary imagination.
Crow and a Baby, is that a song?
It's fantastic. It's like a Grimm's fairy tale.
Right. As a supporter of SWFC, what does Boxing Day mean to you, from Howard Booth?
Boxing Day Massacre, 4-0. I'll sing you a song. Okay.
Right.
We will fight forevermore because of Boxing Day. Hark now, hear the Wednesday sing. United ran away, etc.
Nice. Timo Jalkanen, a moment in the music industry that changed your opinion of it forever, a gobsmacker, good or bad, with or without mentioning names.
There was a kind of light bulb moment for me, right from the start of Spotify, for instance. They're not the only ones, by the way, but it was clear to me that Spotify was potentially a virus that would infect and destroy the traditional music industry. And at that time, I was part of a lobby group called Featured Artists Coalition, representing artists' rights. And I remember turning up to our annual event that we held with the Music Managers Forum in the UK. And there was a giant Spotify logo on the screen, and I just left the building. I said, these people will undoubtedly destroy what we know as the music industry. And I still believe that's true. Very negative, I'm sorry, but I believe it.
You do use Spotify.
Oh, of course, I'm a hypocrite.
Tracy Roberts says, Sex in Fairyland. Who came up with that line, and is it to be recommended?
Firstly, if anybody knows where Fairyland is, please send me a postcard or an email. And regarding Sex in Fairyland, do fairies have sex? Do they even have genitals?
Yeah, it's the age-old question.
Yeah, it's a bit like mermaids, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do they reproduce?
No, it's
do they exude eggs?
It's in their armpits. That's where their genitals are.
Is it?
Yeah. Aubrey Donaldson, not a music-related question, but I'm very curious. If a biopic were to be made about your life or those of your bands, who would you like to see in the role of Martyn Ware?
Johnny Depp.
Or any of the other major players in your history?
I think Yeah. I reckon with the right hair, with the right wig. Who's that dude who played the robot in the Alien film? Michael. Oh, you know, he's got a Scandinavian name. You know him.
Yeah.
I think he'd be quite good as Phil.
Okay. What about the guy who played you in the
I was appalling.
in the Tina Turner?
I wanted to take him on one side. I'm a character in the Tina the musical. I wanted to take him on one side and give him some coaching lessons about the Sheffield accent, which was nothing like that. Not only that, he dressed in a way that I've never dressed in my life. He looked like a kind of Camden Town goth.
What is it? Hey up, Tina. He's a drum
Now
machine.
then, here's a drum machine, and I've done this. Where's the band, Martyn? And it's over there in that Fairlight box.
It's uncanny.
Yeah.
Miles Matisse, can you tell one really great story about Ian Craig Marsh? And
Yes.
yes,
I've
go
got a
on.
great story about Ian Craig Marsh. We were doing a TV show in Germany, and it was in the middle of winter. It was a TV show, and then we did a PA in the evening, which is in a nightclub. It was in 1981, I think. And went to this nightclub, and the night was sponsored by Kahlua. Right. Very, very bad idea. And because it's free Kahlua all night. I mean, can you imagine? Just drinking Kahlua.
It's headachy.
Oh, my God. Anyway, we were so drunk. I don't recommend it to anyone. And we stayed there until the club closed at 2. And we were looking round to walk back to our hotel, which is only like half a mile away or something. And we were going to try to find Ian, and we couldn't find him. We thought, he's just chipped off early, you know. So me and Glenn went back to the hotel. Of course, we opened the door, and it was a foot deep in snow. It was a nightmare getting back to the hotel. Anyway, we got back. And didn't think anything about it. Went to bed. Got up the following morning. Ian was at breakfast looking like death. I mean, grey. I'm going, what happened? He said, I got locked in the nightclub in total darkness.
No way.
He fell asleep in the toilet.
No way.
Yeah, woke up, didn't know where he was, didn't know how to get out, or where the emergency exits were or anything. Eventually, he found the exit. Couldn't remember where the hotel was. Was stumbling around. He had to flag down a police car to help him find the hotel. He just remembered the name of the hotel. Got back to the hotel, managed to find his room. Bear in mind, he's still really drunk.
Yeah.
Went to his room, thought, and he was like hypothermic, you know. So he decided to run a bath. Got in the bath, fell asleep in the bath, slipped under the water, nearly drowned.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, so that's Ian Marsh. When he went off-piste, he went properly off-piste.
Yeah.
He was such an inspirational, creative character, and funny like fuck.
Kahlua, not even once.
No.
We got a question from Todd Field. Hi Martyn, I have just played the Robin Rimbaud pod. I'm a huge fan of the electronic underworld artists who create away from the mainstream. I know you have asked for suggestions on future guests, but I'd like to learn more about your forays into immersive sound creations and musical installations. In terms of artists, I loved the interview with Stephen Wilson. His Bass Communion side project is fantastic, and others such as Simon Scott, Ian William Craig, Andy Stott, and David Toop would help give listeners insight into that world.
Good. That's a statement more than a question, really, isn't it? David Toop, I've got a lot of time for. I've shared a platform with him on various things. His original compilation album, what was it called? Universe of Sound or something. Can't remember. Anyway, that had a major influence on me. Opened my eyes to lots of different artists. I love the abstract, the world, the freedom of the world of abstract recording and composition. I also like writing to conceptual narrative brief, and I mean it's an enormous world. I can't give you any tips on it. You've just got to go and, there are no excuses anymore. Anybody can go and go down that rabbit hole and research whatever you like. But I would urge people who generally only listen to rock music or pop music to give it a whirl, because it really opened my eyes at an early point. Nothing is off the table as far as I'm concerned in terms of electronic music. I love it all.
Fair play. We've got a question from Mark. Inspired by Jay Rayner's book, My Last Supper, what would be your last meal, Martyn, and what would you wash it down with?
I would go to Nobu London on Old Park Lane. In fact, I've often said that if I was given 3 weeks to live, I'd just book into the hotel there and just dine there every meal. It's my favourite restaurant. And actually that particular branch, I've been to many other Nobus. For anybody who doesn't know, Nobu is a cross between Peruvian and Japanese food. The chef Matsuhisa is just a genius. There's no other. No, seriously. I mean, I don't say that about any other restaurants. I never have done. I don't buy into all this Michelin bullshit at all. It's just the most delicious space age food. And so that is the answer to that. What would I wash it down with? Not wine, probably a very fine sake, potentially, or they do amazing cocktails there, which are equally creative.
Yeah, I've still not been. Got to go.
Well, if you keep, you play cards right, I'll take you there one day.
Ooh. We've got a question from DJ H Worms. How would you define a champagne socialist? Starting to regret this call for questions.
I've already responded to this. Firstly, fuck off. Secondly, no, I know you're only teasing. I hate the term champagne socialist because it implies that it's not possible to have morals as soon as you've got money. It's kind of like that thing where you go, oh, you'll grow up one day. When you're really rich, you'll forget your morals and then, become a Tory. Well, it's not ever going to be the case. So you cannot say to me or anyone else that having money stops you being a good person.
Yeah, he does follow with the caveat of still you were using it for yourself. Smiley face.
Yeah, no,
just
but
saying.
I was. I'm doing a smiley face here, wink. I sometimes use it as a term to wind people up, because it's the most vapid criticism of socialist beliefs I can imagine.
It is bollocks. Yeah, no, yeah. I agree. Andy Williams. He's got a few here. What is your biggest regret in life? Do you ever meet any fellow musicians on the circuit?
I'll do them one at a time.
Okay. What is your biggest regret in life?
I really don't have very many at all. I suppose I regret turning down the Bette Midler album I was offered, because it probably would have set me up for life, to be honest. I misguidedly thought that her career was over.
Who?
She was not fashionable. Bette Midler, she's a very famous film actor and singer.
Right.
And after I turned that album down, she went on to have about 10 Grammys.
Wow.
So I regret that. But, I mean, in terms of everything else, everybody has ups and downs, and you can't regret. I suppose I regret losing confidence in keeping things electronic for the last couple of M70 for Pleasure One and Teddy Bear Duke and Psycho, kind of lost our way a bit and started using more session musicians and became more of a rock group because we hadn't tried that. And I suppose we made the decision based on intuition at the time, but it was just the wrong thing.
Right. Do you ever meet any fellow musicians on the circuit and think, oh no, not this C word again? Cunt.
Cunt, yeah. It's difficult, that. Not really. My biggest sadness regarding this is I used to be really good friends with John Lydon. And in fact, we recorded some stuff which never got released for BEF. We were very good mates. And now he's just become a cunt, you know. So it's sad. I don't know if it's an act or not, and I don't really care. But the fact is, if you're in a position of influence and you decide to start endorsing people like Trump, you are as bad as the people who are doing the harm, as far as I'm concerned.
True that. Okay, this is similar to other questions. If you had to delete your entire back catalogue but could only keep one track, what would it be?
Let Me Go.
Yeah. Neil Babbage. Over the years, Heaven 17 has had several female singers. Billy, Rachel, Hayley, Kelly. Each has been technically brilliant and also superbly fitting with Glenn's voice and style. Where do you keep finding them? Who does the auditions, and do you have a favourite? Which of your songs do you use for the auditions? Is it all about temptation? No need to answer the favourite part.
Well, it started with the fact on Penthouse and Pavement we used Josie James, who was one of Stevie Wonder's backing singers, and she was brilliant. And then, of course, we needed to find somebody to sing Temptation, and we used Carol Kenyon. We've always had this. We always like the idea of the kind of contradiction of the kind of hardness of it softens the hardness of the electronic thing for me, and I just love female soul voices. But when it came to actually performing live in the mid to late 90s, Billy Godfrey was the first person I went to perform live with us, because I'd actually spotted her. A young band, won a competition for me to produce a track, and she was singing with them, called Sun Circus, I think they were called. And I made a mental note that she was 21 at the time, and I just thought she was brilliant. I mean, you know, her voice hadn't matured properly, but I loved her vibe. And then, so I went to her, and then she was pals with Angie Brown, who's obviously a star in her own right, with Bizarre Inc. I'm going to get you, I'm going to shut you, baby. I'm going to get you, yes I am. That is a big dance hit. Right. I'm still friends with Angie now. So they were our backing singers for a long while. And then Billy was living in Brighton, working at BIM. And when Billy moved to... That was our kind of pool of talent, was really Brighton BIM, where they all came from. And as we moved on, Billy's moved to France now, so it became less feasible for us to... economically feasible for us to bring her over for every gig. So she suggested Rachel and Kelly and Hayley as well, who deps occasionally, all came from the Brighton scene, and they're all extremely talented in their own right. And we always wanted the girls to be characters, with equal weight front of stage, not the kind of notional backing singers like you get on Jules Holland, for instance, where everybody's dressed in black and you're just in the background. It's all about the glory of the lead singer. we always wanted it to be more egalitarian than that. And so we always thought, and still do think, and it's paid off, I think, that we want to make the female singers that we work with into characters in the kind of narrative of a gig. And so we encourage them to ad-lib, we encourage them to... we always say to them, you can't upstage us. It's impossible. You know. Even if you, however much you try, it's a bit like saying to an Italian woman, don't dress up to go to the supermarket. We don't care. If you want to dress up to go to the supermarket, go for it. So we don't control what they wear. We don't tell them what they do. If they go completely crackers and start standing in front of Glenn while he's singing or something, obviously we'd stop that. But the idea is to have, it has to feel like a team effort. Yeah. And that makes the best of their vocal talents as well. So, yeah. A special shout out for Billy, because she made it all happen in the first place. And I suppose for Kelly, who's just one of the most talented vocalists I've ever worked with in my life.
Yeah, they are amazing, actually. We've got a question from Brian Hodges. He's got two questions. The first one is, in Simon Reynolds' book, Rip It Up and Start Again, he describes early Human League gigs as dangerous and transgressive events. In particular, the reaction to your use of tape machine and synth. Could you comment on the music scene at the time you started playing? Were you nervous at those gigs or just driven?
Both. Nervous because we were right in the deep end, supporting Susie and the Banshees on two national tours, and their audience was skinheads largely at that time, which were not noted for their genteel listening to the music. There was a skinhead on the front row of the Victoria Hall in Stoke, which I remember till the day I die, who was banging his nose on the edge of the stage to make it bleed and then spitting blood at me. And that wasn't very pleasant. Then we did some gigs where we're headlining in Germany, but this was about 6 months later, and we made no bones out of the fact that we used a backing tape. We used to have it on stage with us. And we were playing somewhere in East Germany, can't remember where it was. Can't remember. Anyway, it was a very rock town. I mean, the stage security were Hell's Angels, and they came. It was a full house, and everybody seemed to be enjoying it. And then, into the third number, somebody got a Union Jack out and started burning it in the audience. At which point we thought, this is not going to go well. Then they started throwing things at us. One particular thing they threw was, in old coaches, they used to have like ashtrays attached to the wall, like semicircular things. Somebody had ripped it off on the way there, obviously. Threw that, and it missed my head by about an inch. If that had caught me, God knows, it would have been a disaster. So we had to abandon the gig halfway through because the audience were getting increasingly agitated. The security, in inverted commas, who were Hell's Angels, melted away. So anybody, literally, if they'd have wanted to, could come backstage. They could have hit us, anything. Beaten us up. We just had to make a run from the building, basically. Managed to get the synths out as well. So that was an extreme example. But generally in Britain, the punk audiences were very surprisingly receptive, actually. And our gigs were quite transgressive. I mean, quite challenging. It was like going, everything you've ever believed is wrong, and we're just going to do what we want to do and fuck the lot of you. And that is quite challenging for a lot of people. But anyway, there you go.
Did you have flight cases for
Yeah.
Since you did, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. The second question from Brian Hodges is, from an outsider's perspective, your music career looks like it has bounced from one success to another. I'm sure that's not the case. Was there ever a time you were ready to pack it all in and sell insurance?
Well, not to sell insurance. No, not really. I don't think... I mean, when we got dropped from Virgin in '86, I'd already got a very successful production career going, so it was like I just shifted focus, really. And the success of that continued for quite a while. And until the mid '90s, and then we started performing live, and that gave Heaven 17 another lease of life, which grew and grew and grew until now we can do national sellout tours and international tours, and so there's never really been a point where I thought, oh, this is just not worth the effort anymore. The only real pity is it's very difficult to justify spending months in the studio recording anymore, because it literally loses money, and it all goes back to the Spotify thing, which is not getting paid for what you deserve,
Yeah. Okay, we've got two more. We've got James Johnston, who asks, hi Martyn, I'm just wondering if either the Human League or Heaven 17 band members were/are into photography and took photographs whilst you were in the recording studio or on tour. If not band members, then hired in a photographer. Maybe there is a stash of old photos somewhere that could tell a story or be in a photo book. Just an idea.
Interesting story. I am a keen photographer, always have been. I've got 150,000 photos in my library, but they start from 1993, really, apart from a few old ones. The reason being is that when I moved house and I was starting a new life with my second wife, Lansley, who I love very much, we decided it'd probably be a good idea if I didn't have a record of my previous life with my previous wife, so just thought it was easier just to get rid of them, basically, and make a clean slate. Unfortunately, in that process, a lot of stuff got thrown out. So I don't really have very much from before 1993.
Right. Someone has copied in a link here to...
Glenn's a photographer, and he took a load of stuff of the early Human League.
Yeah.
As a professional photographer.
Neil Babbage has replied to James Johnston's comment and linked in a photo book which is signed by you and Glenn.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's they were Glenn's photos. Yeah.
Nice. We've got a question from Gary Williams. Hi again, Martyn. Would it be possible for you to link to or play in this festive podcast the Heaven 17 version of Dandelion and Burdock, as mentioned in the Graham Fellows podcast?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll look for it
as
soon as we finish this. It's on there somewhere. It's very funny.
That's pretty much it. There's
also a Christmas song.
Really?
We did Little Drummer Boy, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to put that in one.
We'll put that in
Glen.
In the Glen one, yeah.
Yeah, there's bits and bobs. People asking about Jean-Michel Jarre, which would be cool.
Jean-Michel Jarre.
Jean-Michel Jarre.
Jean-Michel.
Whatever.
What about him?
Chris Storey is asking if you will get him on the podcast.
I don't know how to contact him. If you've got any ideas, let me know. People seem to think that I can just pick a phone up to anyone and they're just going to do the podcast.
Well, Chris...
It takes a lot of work to get this shit together.
Chris says it's really not that difficult to make contact with him, and he is always willing to interact with worthy discussion relating to electronic music.
All right, Chris, would you mind asking on my behalf and contact me?
He says, please drop me a line and I'll do the hard work.
Do the hard work and contact me.
Cool. I think that's the bulk of them, really. Everyone's had a go.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Chaz. That's been very kind of you to do this. I want to incorporate Chaz into more of the podcasts, and because I want him to get credit for the beautiful music that he's done on the outros in particular, and all the interstitial stuff for the podcasts. He's had a lot of compliments. You never heard him speak before. Here he is.
Hello.
And we're going to put a short playlist of edited highlights of some of the pieces from the podcasts on my SoundCloud page, so you can hear them as part of this thing. Yes. We'll put the link in the.
We'll pop it in the
thing.
In the thing.
And so, listen, everybody, have as good a Christmas as you can, and let's hope that 2022 is a much better year for everyone. I'm hoping very much that it will be for all of us. And I wish you all happy holidays.
And Merry Christmas from me.
Yo ho ho.
Ho ho ho.
Looking back to a better time when life was good and there was little crime. Children played on their pogo sticks, and on Saturday went to the local flicks. And we all drank big bottles of pop, especially Dandelion and Burdock. What I'd give for a tiny slug, though it stung your nose and it made you bug. We were always polite to Barbies on Remembrance Day. We all wore poppies, and we all had useful hobbies. Well, I did anyway. At the Kreitstram Museum, I was with a friend called Ian. We were there from 9 to chucking out time. There was so much there worth seeing at the Kreitstram Museum. Disaster befell poor Ian. A vicious Jasper made him drop his dandelion and burdock. Oh, that Jasper made him drop his dandelion and burdock. Ian's bottle had developed a crack, so he couldn't get his deposit back. Now tuppence may not seem a lot, but it would buy you a big fat lollipop. When blackjacks were just 2 a penny. Remember now, we're talking old money. Not that we ever had any, but we were happy then. Cycling with my peers, the wind whistling past my ears. As we reached Mentor, I was grateful for my Sturmy Archer gears. At the Kreitstram Museum, I was with a friend called Ian. We were there from 9 till chucking out time. There was so much there worth seeing at the Kreitstram Museum. Disaster befell poor Ian. A vicious Jasper made him drop his dandelion and burdock. Oh, that Jasper made him drop is dandelion and burdock. Oh, how I'd love one drop of dandelion and burdock.
Wednesday supporter. Here he is, Ian Anderson.